Today's Sports Spectrum interview was pre-recorded prior to the coronavirus outbreak.
Welcome to Sports Spectrum, the sports and faith podcast that brings Jesus back into the conversation. Here's your host, Jason Romano.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to the podcast. I am Jason Romano. This is Sports Spectrum. Our email address, jason@sportspectrum.com, and our website, check it out, sportspectrum.com. And we are presented today by two of our wonderful partners. The first is Compassion International. You know about Compassion. We love Compassion. You can check out the website, compassion.com/sportspectrum, to learn how you can release a child from poverty. Caring Christian adults in the local church know that every child by name, whether they are sick or well, struggling or excelling, are being discipled one child at a time in the name of Jesus because of Compassion International, working exclusively through the local church in communities all around the world. Check out the website, compassion.com/sportspectrum, and pray about sponsoring a child today. We're also welcoming a brand new sponsor today to Sports Spectrum, and they are Water Mission, a nonprofit Christian engineering ministry that fights the global water crisis with safe water, sanitation, and hygiene solutions in developing countries and disaster areas. We love Water Mission. They have served more than 5 million people in 56 countries, building safe water solutions that break through the global water crisis. Check out their website, watermission.org, watermission.org, to learn more, to pray with them, and to fight the global water crisis in this world today. Really excited to bring to you a different conversation today as we intersect the world of sports and faith. And today we actually intersect the world of music as well with our guest, Chris Cauley. Chris is a musician, and every year around December or so, Chris comes down as part of North Point Inside Out's worship band. They're out of Atlanta, Georgia, and plays at a conference that we attend, a baseball conference. And he's awesome. And every time I watch him up there, I'm so just encouraged by his love for Jesus and his fantastic talent as a musician. And so when I saw him this year, I said, hey, let's do a podcast together. I know how much you love sports. I know how much you love Jesus. This is a sports and faith podcast. Let's talk sports and Jesus. And I'll ask you questions about music too, because that's something that's interesting to me. So Chris Cauley's our guest today. I think you'll love getting to know about Chris. He's an Atlanta boy. He loves his Braves. He loves his Falcons. He loves his FC Atlanta soccer. And I think you'll love Chris Cauley. Joining us here on Sports Spectrum. Take a listen. Mr. Cauley, welcome to Sports Spectrum.
Yeah, thank you, man. This is super cool. This is, I don't know how in the world I got on this.
Well, why not?
I love it.
Because we're buddies.
We're
we don't
buddies.
just have famous athletes, right? We got buddies on.
I'm not a famous athlete, but I tweet about famous athletes.
There you go.
I guess
so that counts, right? No, you're a singer-songwriter,
Yeah.
and we don't have a ton of musicians on the podcast, but we have had some. We have Mac Powell, we have Matthew West, and a couple different people in the sort of Christian music genre.
Yeah.
And I'm always fascinated. For me personally, it just becomes good. We don't have to talk about sports the whole time. We can talk about something that fascinates me because it's different than the world that I'm in. But you want to come on and talk about sports.
Exactly.
So I totally get it. So we'll mix the two together and talk about sports. You are a diehard Atlanta fan.
Diehard Atlanta.
All sports.
All sports. Braves primarily. My dad had season tickets when I was 4 months old and all through my childhood. So we were. And I was born in the early 80s, so we were terrible, late 80s. It was it was brutal baseball. So long before the 14 division titles, we were sitting out in left field behind Lonnie Smith with about 4,000 of our closest friends.
That's right. And the Mets would come and beat you guys pretty good in the 80s.
So
Darryl Strawberry and Dwight Gooden and Keith Hernandez and those guys. Then the Braves got really good right as your kind of coming into your formative years.
Yeah. And of course, 14 straight, one title to celebrate. And truthfully, I was a little too young. I mean, I was born in 84. We won 95. So I just want one I want to be an adult enjoying it, not just a little kid, so.
I know. It's hard though. Atlanta sports is saying you're an Atlanta sports fan can be pretty difficult. I mean, 28-3 still, you can't even bring it up, right?
Oh no, you can't. it'll never go away. And quite honestly, I didn't grow up a diehard Falcons fan, so I obviously over the years as I got older, I wasn't really raised on football. I didn't really know the game well, but as I started, developing my own fandom, I started, okay, I'm in. I was so excited, and I literally cried that night, and to the point now it's just anger. So I'm like, forget it,
Yeah, it's funny. They say you're either defined or refined by our struggles. And,
gosh!
And even as a fan, it can either define you or refine you.
That's so true.
And it's hard because I didn't really care about the game per se and who wins, but I knew if New England was in there, I was going to root for somebody else. Please don't hate me, Patriot fans. It's just they win every single time.
Yeah.
So I'm looking for a different team to kind of take over the mantle. And when I'll tell you the truth, when Brady threw the pick six and it went to 28-3, I was cheering like it was my own team.
Yeah.
Only because I wanted to see. I think we all want to see Goliath kind of fall a little bit.
Oh, absolutely.
And so it's 28-3, and then.
And man,
the rug gets pulled out. I'm
getting text messages because I'm born and raised in Atlanta, and Atlanta is such a transplant city.
Yeah.
But I was there in Cumming, Georgia, when there was a Hardee's and a Dairy Queen, and that's it. Now it's one of the biggest, part of the Metro Atlanta. So everybody, whether in music world, sports world, everybody's texting me like, "Hey, you're finally going to get this." And I literally said, "Nope, this is Atlanta. Until that clock is 000." I'm not even. Everybody's like, "Come on, you're up this much. Like, come on, you can go ahead and celebrate." I said, "Nope." And sure enough,
I went back and watched the highlights reluctantly recently, and I don't remember why. I think it was because I wanted to kind of understand the anatomy of a blown lead, just because the Cowboys have done a lot of that too. As a Dallas Cowboys fan,
I forgot you're a Cowboys fan.
Yeah, huge Cowboys fan, and
I'm sorry.
It literally. It's okay. I appreciate your sympathy. We're both suffering, right?
Yeah.
I was 21 in 1995 when they last won a Super Bowl, so it's been a while for me. But I was watching this video, the replay of the Super Bowl game, and everything has to go perfectly wrong / perfectly right for a comeback like that to happen. Yeah. Like you have to throw it instead of run it and lose. And lose a chance to knock off a minute off the clock. You have to make a miraculous catch on 3rd and 11 like Edelman did.
Yep.
You have to score and get the 2-point conversion multiple times to make a comeback that quickly. And that's the brutal part of it.
It's exactly what happened.
It's exhausting. It's brutal. It's brutal. But honestly, it's why we love sports too, right?
It is. I mean, it's one of those, I'm a golfer too. I'm terrible. I'm a horrible golfer. And
then why do you like it?
Exactly.
Why do you like something you're bad at?
It's the one shot, though, that keeps me coming back, Growing up, I was throwing clubs. I was a hothead out there, but it's the one shot keeps you coming back. And it's kind of the same with sports. Like here we are in the off season of baseball season, all these free agents shining. Like, next year's our year. And everybody's in first place, right? Opening day. So listen,
I put it on Twitter every year on opening day. This is the year the Mets are going to be the World Series champions. And listen, they haven't won a World Series since 1986. So it's been a long time. Chris Cauley is our guest here on Sports Spectrum. He is a singer-songwriter, a member of North Point Worship. That's Andy Stanley's church out of Atlanta. Yeah. So singer-songwriter, when does that take shape for you? Are you discovering at a very young age that you're pretty good at this singing thing, at this music thing?
You know what? Discovered, no. Self-aware, yes. Truthfully, I didn't sing in front of anyone publicly until I was a junior or senior in high school. And it's a funny story. I also had a theater background, so I did a lot of theater productions, and I landed the role of Danny in Grease.
Danny Zuko.
Yeah. And I noticed there was these two girls. This one girl I had a crush on in high school. They attended every show, and they sat in the same seats. I'm like, hey, this is kind of cool. This pretty girl over there likes me, So I say that kind of tongue in cheek, but I started like, hey, maybe I'm not too bad at this. So I started playing guitar. Never had a lesson in my life. I learned guitar chords from a poster you buy at Walmart or something, and I had it hanging on my wall, and I would just kind of pick around. And to me, it's hard to really teach the rhythm of it. And like I would be the worst guitar teacher or vocal teacher for that matter. I would be because I was never taught. It was just something that it's in my blood. My grandmother was a bluegrass musician. She had her own radio show back way back in the day. Yeah. So music's kind of always been in my family. But yeah, man, it's a funny, obviously like the sports world, it's just a funny business, It
is. And success and achievement in life is an issue, I guess, for a lot of people or right. a struggle. But I got to imagine in the music world, people don't even really understand the grind, but then how do we define what's successful?
Yeah.
Like I'll look at Chris Cauley and say, did he ever reach #1 on the Billboard music chart? So no, okay, then he's not successful.
Exactly.
It's like, that's not kind of how it works, but that's the brutal, like you can't compare it to baseball. Did he ever, how many home runs did he hit?
Exactly.
How many World Series did he win? Well, he didn't do any of that. He didn't even make it to the major leagues. Oh, failure. It's like, really? Because he made it further than, 80% of the other people in the world could ever make it. So talk about your journey through this music world.
Yeah, it's funny. Early on, like most kids, and once I decided to start touring and playing, I feel like, we actually spoke about this off air, but I feel like I was one of the, I'm 35, about to be 36. I feel like I was one of the last of the really, sign a record deal at an early age, hop in the van and tour, make a very cheap record, sell records out of your car, sleep in horrible hotels. I remember heating up a Wendy's. I remember we were so broke. Remember I got a double stack at Wendy's, ate half of it one night at the La Puerta Lodge, I believe, in Albuquerque, New Mexico. Shag carpet, open flame furnace, Yes. And then I heat up the burger the next day, the other half of the burger, so I could save a few bucks, And it's
just do whatever it takes.
Yeah, man, you just grow, and that's where I learned about business and just life, and I got to see the country and later on the world, and so I feel like I was one of the last. To kind of go about it that way. Now everybody, if you can sing in the shower and you're 15 years old, 16 years old, you go and make a YouTube video. Next thing you know, you're in line at a reality TV show and you're on TV a few weeks later. It's just, there is no, it just seems like there's not a lot of the grinding and paying dues, so to speak.
Well,
so
ironically, you end up on a reality show,
Exactly.
which we'll talk about in a second.
Yeah.
But I want to kind of go just backwards a little bit.
Yeah.
When you're coming out of high school, I have no idea if you went to college. Was it college and then like pursuing, to be a specific type of vocation, or was music the passion? And when you're describing going and playing in these small places and staying in these, dumpy hotels, is that at the age of 18, like right out of high school?
Yeah,
when is all that taking place?
Yeah, no, it's a great thought. So I did go to college. I actually had a theater education scholarship, believe it or not. So I was super into theater and direction and all that, and like from an arts standpoint. So I feel like I'm pretty cultured, so to speak, from that realm.
Yeah.
But I did go to school at Columbus State University in Georgia on a theater education scholarship. Hated it. I was only there a semester. Came back to school, came back home, went to school 2 days a week, and was touring the rest. And those 2 days a week when I was in school, I was writing lyrics. I was writing out MapQuest directions, in class, which MapQuest kids for back in the day.
I remember MapQuest.
You remember that?
Shout out to MapQuest.
So, and school to me was just, and ironically, I did really well, but my folks, my mom and dad, who were both educators, ironically said, "Hey, you got to go pursue this. You're getting a lot of opportunities. You don't want to kick yourself down the road, So I started touring, and kind of the rest is that. At a young age, I was probably about 20, 21, hitting the road, and 100+ dates a year easily. And I did a lot of touring in the college market, so I was playing. One night might be a cafeteria, and the next night might be the most beautiful theater I've ever seen. It just varied from school to school. So just kind of hit the road. If there is a college of 1,000 students in the middle of nowhere, most people say, "Oh yeah, you have no idea where my town is." I said, "Try me." "Oh, I'm in." "Oh yeah, I've been there. There's a McDonald's off this exit." Like, how in the world do you know that? Well, trust me, I've seen every part, every small town of this country. It's funny.
We'll continue our conversation with Chris Cauley in just a moment, but want to tell you a little bit about our sponsors and partners here at Sports Spectrum. The first is Compassion International, the most trusted child development ministry in the world. If I told you that you were going to donate and sponsor a child for $38 a month, and you knew that that money was going to not only provide food and education and medical care and vocational training, but you knew that that $38 helps contribute to the salvation of a child, the most important thing that any of us could ever think about, spending eternity with Jesus, would you be excited about that? I know I am, because I sponsor a child through Compassion, and every single child with Compassion and through the Compassion program is being discipled in the Word of God. Over 150,000 children chose to follow Christ in the last year alone because of Compassion International. Here's your chance, your opportunity to do your part and help release a child from poverty. Go to compassion.com/sportsspectrum. Compassion.com/sportsspectrum. $38 a month, tax deductible. Release a child from poverty today. We're also sponsored and presented by our newest partners here at Sports Spectrum, Water Mission. Water Mission, a nonprofit Christian engineering ministry fighting the global water crisis with safe water and sanitation and hygiene solutions in developing countries and disaster areas, serving over 5 million people in 56 countries. Listen to some of these statistics. 2.1 billion people, that's billion with a B, lack access to safe water. 4.4 billion people lack access to adequate sanitation. Women spend 200 million hours every day walking for water. One person dies every 37 seconds from water-related illnesses. This is why we love Water Mission. They are doing their part, the best that they can, to provide access to safe water. More than 5 million people now have access to safe water because of Water Mission. Safe water and sanitation projects, they help build these. More than 2,700 of those projects. This is as of February of 2020. People provided access to adequate sanitation. Water Mission, more than 155,000 people now have access to adequate sanitation because of Water Mission. Fighting the global water crisis. Check out their website, watermission.org. Watermission.org, and learn more about the great work they're doing to fight the global water crisis. Now back to our conversation here with Chris Cauley on Sports Spectrum. Regarding your faith, growing up in Georgia, growing up in the church, it sounds like you kind of had a church background. Did you ever have that sort of crisis of faith to kind of make Jesus, Lord for you, or has it always been, kind of prominent in your journey?
Yeah, my mom and dad, thankfully, I was in church my whole life, but to be honest, it was kind of, it's kind of what you're supposed to do. You're just supposed to be in church. You're supposed to get your gold star for the week. It's just something I have to do, and it wasn't until, I made a ton of mistakes, my teens and my early 20s, and goodness, touring and all that stuff and all this crazy stuff you see out there in that crazy business. It wasn't until, I discovered a faith of my own. I'm like, hey, wait, I can be loved for who I am. I don't have to be to call myself a Christian or to stand on a stage and sing worship music. I don't have to be perfect.
Right.
Oh, wow. Like, why would God ever want to use me? I'm a mess up. You know what I mean? And so quite honestly, I think we would all be lying if we said we didn't struggle with that on a daily basis to an extent. But yeah, it wasn't until later in life, honestly, even in the past decade or so, where I really, looked to Jesus as a relationship. And I'm always talking and praying, and it didn't have to be this verbiage and saying this and amen. It's just like, hey God, I just want to thank you for today. Thank you for loving me. You're choosing to love me. You don't need me whatsoever, but you want to be with me. That is so cool, and I'm grateful for that.
That's so the grace, the beauty of God's grace. Tell me about The Voice. So you mentioned reality shows and standing in line, and yes, I totally understand like the phenomenon of that and the world we live in. And I would think it was America's Got Talent, American Idol that really put the sort of music reality show judgment, judges type of thing on display. I don't even remember what year it was, 2003, 2004 maybe? My daughter was born in 2004, and I think that was the Kelly Clarkson year.
I was in college, I remember.
So somewhere in that range, and then all of a sudden these other shows start to come on, and The Voice is on NBC, and you're on The Voice, season 2 of The Voice. If you look up Chris Cauley, you'll see him on there. How does that come about? Tell that story.
Yeah, that's a funny story, because they had apparently reached out to my management for season 1. And my management declined on my behalf without me ever knowing. And then
did you have a talk with your management?
No, as a matter of fact, I was happy about it. To be truthful,
okay.
But my buddy, great guy, Javier Colon, just incredible voice, and incredible golfer, by the way. Mm-hmm. But he actually won season 1, and I was a fan of his long before I knew him. And he just, he said, "Man, you just got to do it. This is where the industry is headed, and how in the world could you even pay for that amount of publicity? Just go out and have fun." So I said, okay, season 2, they approached us, and thankfully, they're always scouring YouTube and the internet and saying, hey, we want you to be on the show. So you kind of have to, you fortunately get to skip the lines and all that.
Sure.
And waiting because I just wouldn't have done it.
Yeah.
But it's kind of going back to the roots of how I, toured records and kind of paid the dues. Selfishly, I didn't want to be associated with I discovered I can sing yesterday. I said, no, I've been touring for 10 plus years. Just let that be known. Like, I don't.
Right. You weren't just discovered on a random YouTube clip.
Yeah. Because, the stigma of a reality show talent is just, after the show, it's not great in the industry. It's like when you're on the show, you want to promote it. The second you're off the show, you want everybody to forget about it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's funny. But I had a great time. I really did.
Now, who were the judges and the people that kind of watching you there?
So it was CeeLo, Christina Aguilera, Adam Levine, and Blake. And I was on Adam's team, and he couldn't have been more gracious. And if anything, if I walked away with anything from the whole experience, is that, hey, I was created to do this, and I was getting validation from these A-list artists. And I remember Adam saying in one of our rehearsals, he's like, man, I can't teach you anything. You just keep doing what you're doing. And if I ever picked his brain about anything, it was, how do you deal with critique and negativity because you're on the the Super Bowl halftime show years ago. I mean, what everybody loves to just hate. And quite honestly, if that were going to be my path, I wouldn't know how to deal with that. I'm a people pleaser. I want everybody to be happy all the time.
Yeah.
It's roses and fields and running around, but it's just such a an interesting thing. But it's far from reality. If I'm honest, it's the only time I ever really forgot about cameras is when I was kind of one-on-one around a piano with Adam, and Robin Thicke was on as a mentor. So it was the three of us around a piano. And that was like, okay, we're talking music now. We're not putting on makeup, and we're not having to walk through a door 3 or 4 times because they didn't get a right shot. It's that kind of stuff.
The staged stuff.
Oh, yeah. There's no such thing as reality TV. let that be known. But no, they do a great job, and the folks there at NBC were awesome.
So obviously you didn't win that season, right? And so, but still, getting on a show like that can potentially lead to this quote unquote catapulting of a career, right? Sure. And for you, you didn't go and become the #1 best-selling singer of all time. What takes place though from being on The Voice? What happens to you? Are you understanding that the career is going a certain direction? Are you seeing that take place, or is it okay? I was on the show, but what do we do now?
Yeah. No, that's a great question. Honestly, all it really did from a career standpoint was to people who were either hearing about you in the business or quote unquote fans or whatever. It gives you credibility, which is ironic because again, you don't want to necessarily be associated with it, but at shows I was selling a lot more tickets, and merch table lines were a lot longer, and corporate events.
Are you singing by yourself at this point? Are you in a band? Where are you at this point?
I'm doing a lot of solo acoustic stuff, sometimes duo with my saxophone player that I travel with, which is a pretty cool, unique setup with an acoustic and a sax. And but my shows are always I don't take myself serious at all.
Sure.
Like it feels like we're in the living room. I'm telling horrible jokes. I'm talking sports. I'm playing songs. We're having fun. Everybody's laughing.
Yeah.
And so it's more of a super intimate show where we just kind of hang out in a room together. But yeah, it's really the ticket sales and that you just get a little more attention. And quite honestly, the older I've gotten, the less attention I want. It's an odd thing.
That is interesting with musicians because I think, again, we go back to that. What is the definition of success, right? And success in the eyes of the world is, well, you got to sell a certain amount and you got to kind of achieve a certain amount of fame, and everybody's got to turn into Lauren Daigle. Which, God bless Lauren Daigle. She's doing great, and we love watching her career.
She's a friend of mine. I love.
She is. You guys work together.
Yeah. I call her
connected,
Dags.
right?
Yeah, good old Dags is what I call her.
Dags. That's funny.
I love Daigle.
But not everybody's going to have that. That's why it's such a unique thing to see.
Sure.
So handling that success, you're talking about not wanting to be famous or chasing fame.
Yeah.
What's going on there?
It's Jason, the whole success thing, you're so right. Everybody sees, if you're not a household name, if you're not top 10 on this, or if you're not hitting 330 in the All-Star game or whatever, you're just, he's just a blah, blah. But to me, I thankfully have my perspective has shifted. I've done a 180 since I was, trying to quote unquote make it back in the day. Success to me is nowadays it's so simple. It's making a solid living. I've got more than I need, and I've got my wife and my now 3-year-old who just had a birthday the other day. And if I could be on a Friday or Saturday night, any given night, whatever it may be, if we can sit on the couch together and watch TV and live in a beautiful home that we have more than we need, we're fed, we have great friends, we have a great church family, that is success to me. And I know that I don't want that to sound cliche and all that, but it's so true. My family is everything to me.
No, I love that.
And the more I can be with them, the better. I
love that.
It really is.
But you still get to kind of go to places like we're at. And you get to do this. This is where we met too. I want people to hear us on this. There's a baseball conference every year that takes place, a Christian baseball conference. It's called the Increase Conference. Major League Baseball players come and they get fed in the Lord. They get taught in the Lord. It's really kind of a marriage conference, but it's not all couples. And Chris has been a part of North Point, what was called Inside Out before. Now it's North Point Worship. Yep. As a part of that, you would play and get to interact and play worship and sing worship in front of these professional baseball players. Yep. Take me back to the first time that you got to experience that. And I wonder for you, is that weird standing up there trying to, because you do worship and you're in church and that's natural. But then when you look down and you see baseball player A, baseball player B, baseball player C, and it's kind of like I could see myself getting a little nervous and just be like, this is a little different ball game than what I'm normally used to.
It was super odd, if I'm honest, because I wasn't sure what we were getting into. Myself and Brandon Coker, our drummer, are just massive baseball fans. Yeah. I mean, we just nerd out all the time. So when we get up there, for a song, I'm looking out, and there was, without naming names, there was probably 4 or 5 all-stars sitting in the front row, which is very, very close to the stage. And honestly, it was a weird feeling, but it was super cool. I was, this is great. And to be clear, leading worship is the exact opposite of performing for me. It's this, I feel like we're giving, whether it's people in the congregation or just attenders of a conference, I feel like we're giving people a voice who sometimes don't even know they need it yet or don't even know what to say. I feel like we're all, forget the stage and the lights and all that. We're all in this together, and we just happen to be leading or to put it in a silly baseball context, we're the coach, or we're the first base coach, or we're just kind of guiding and steering the ship. Yeah. We're not performing at all. So to be honest, even at church at North Point, if we run into some friends or some folks in the hallway, and they're like, great performance today. And I know they mean well, know, but it makes me cringe inside. I'm like, oh no, I'm not performing.
Especially if you are performing, like then we're missing the whole point.
Right, exactly. And I quite honestly, leading worship, I could sit behind a curtain backstage in the dark and just be heard through the PA, and that would be just as satisfying. Fine. Yeah.
So are you also leading worship on a, say, Sunday morning? If I go to North Point, are you part of that band? Yeah. So North Point, we've got, 7 campuses now, because certain campuses are branching off. Yeah. But all around the Atlanta area, you can't miss us. That's cool.
And it's super cool, man. It really is. I love my church family, and I like to think, our pastor Andy Stanley, he cares so much about making a big church feel like your church. Mm-hmm. So
and that's very hard to do.
Oh, it's so hard to do.
Because Andy's church in North Point is a huge church with, like you said, many campuses. But yet you still walk in there and you feel like that's your church.
Yeah. And he emphasizes, he's been saying for years, that circles are better than rows. So he has a, all of us do really. We our core values are our small groups. So you've got to get in a small group. We've got married groups, singles groups, men's groups, women's groups. There's groups for widows and a group for this and that, and recently divorced. And it's all about small group. And I love that he says circles are better than rows. And my wife and I are in a small group with some of our guys here and all of our wives, and we meet. We've gone back to once a month, twice a month, but because of travel. But it is so cool, man, and it's just you have to have community. Yeah, you just have to, especially in our crazy world. And gosh, in the sports world, I mean, all these athletes. And
so true.
It's so much travel and so much you're seeing that you probably don't need to see, and all this stuff and temptation and all this, and you're just missing family and our poor wives are at home trying to run the household, and it's tough, man. It really is.
Yeah,
Really
I do see the parallel between musicians and athletes. So let me ask you this. We were going to talk about this, and we won't go too deep in it, but as we get ready to wind down here on the show, athletes always want to be musicians. Musicians always want to be athletes. It's just, I mean, it's pretty much across the board. Every athlete and every musician I've ever talked to. So if musician Chris Cauley could be any athlete at any point in your life, if you could go, I say, I want to be that guy. Like for me, it was always Darryl Strawberry.
Sure.
And we've talked about Darryl before this. He's been on the show. I would have been Darryl Strawberry, and I'll even add another name, Larry Bird. Those were my two guys when I was a kid and even into my teen years. So if I could go back and be Jason Romano, there's something else, I would be Larry Bird or I would be Darryl Strawberry. Who would Chris Cauley be?
I think from a baseball perspective, just in general, it's got to be Chipper Jones.
Yeah.
One of the greatest switch hitters of all time, an Atlanta guy or Florida guy turned Atlanta guy. He never hit free agency, turned down so much money. I love that mentality. He
wanted to be a Brave.
Yeah, he wanted to be a Brave, and he turned down a lot of money to do so. And he was there, and he played the game hard, and he played the game right. And
he still made a pretty good amount of money too, by the way.
I think so.
I think he's okay.
No, I've actually done some charity events with him, and
nice.
Just
Chipper.
Oh my gosh, Chip, and we'll tweet every now and then back and forth. And I still like, oh my gosh, that's Chipper. It's so cool.
Even on a tweet, it's just cool.
It is so cool, right?
Your guy that you root for as a kid come back to you. Yeah, it's crazy.
It's awesome.
By the way, he named his first or second son Shay.
Yeah.
Which I hate saying this because I'm a Mets fan.
That's right. I shouldn't have brought up Chipper in front of you.
That's okay. I can handle it. But he was the Met killer.
Yes.
And not so much so that he named his kid Shea because he owned us at Shea Stadium.
Isn't that great?
It's amazing. But now we can look back and laugh because he even laughs at it too. But he was a Mets killer. Man, he was a Mets killer. Such a great player.
Yeah.
Chris Cauley, we asked this question as we close to all of our guests. Last question on the podcast. What's God teaching you right now? What are you learning from God today?
I'm learning that, dependence on him daily. I am the least patient person on the planet, and I feel like I'm a doer. I feel like I have to do everything. I have to fix everything. With a toddler running around the house, my wife and I have 3 businesses being run out of our house. I feel like I can do everything, right? Mm-hmm. And I just, any mess I get in, business-wise, I feel like I can fix it, and I just can't. I need to learn to just sit back and take a deep breath and just depend wholeheartedly on Jesus. And it's really that. It's really that simple. It's patience and dependence. It really is.
Where can people go and just listen to your stuff, Chris? I mean, sure, it's out there. Is it Spotify? I know certainly North Point's Worship, North Point Inside Out stuff on Spotify. I will go on record and say, and I've been saying this for 4 years, Death Was Arrested, which is a song that you sing a lot. That is the single greatest worship song for me in my journey as a believer. Death Was Arrested has meant so much to me, and I know you guys sing that quite a bit. It's on Spotify, but where else? Is some stuff out there that people can listen to?
Yeah, absolutely. There's pretty much anywhere you can get music. I'm on there. If you look up Chris Cauley, and I would actually want to promote more the North Point Worship, honestly. I love being a part of those brothers and sisters, and we're dear friends, and our families are friends, and it's just, I love being a part of something that's so much bigger than we are. Mm-hmm. I love that.
Yeah.
I love it.
Awesome. Chris Cauley, thanks, man. Thanks for being here.
Thank you guys, man. Appreciate you.
And that was Chris Cauley, and singer-songwriter. You can find Chris on Twitter at Chris Cauley. He's a great follow and a lot of fun and great, passionate sports fan. And obviously, we taped this interview well before the coronavirus outbreak. This was taped actually back in December of 2018, and we're just releasing it now. And I thought it was a great conversation. And Chris is a wonderful person. He's a great friend, and I'm glad that we were able to bring this conversation to you. Obviously, circumstances are a little different now. Our conversation would have been much different if we would taped this post-March 10th, if you will, with the coronavirus outbreak. But I hope you're enjoying these conversations. I hope this podcast is still encouraging you, whether the interviews were done before or after the coronavirus outbreak. And hopefully you're all safe. Hopefully you're staying, social distancing 6 feet from each other and all those things that we're supposed to be doing right now in the crazy, just strange time that we're living in. But God is in control. He's on the throne, and I stand on his promise that he is there for his children and he will take care of us and be there for us. And that's who I place my faith in. I place my faith in Jesus, and I trust in him. So thanks for listening. We appreciate you. We also appreciate our sponsors, Compassion International, and our newest partner, Water Mission. Again, their website's compassion.com/sports spectrum, and Water Mission is watermission.org. Super easy. Watermission.org. Check them both out. We love having them as sponsors and partners with us here at Sports Spectrum. You can also reach us on our website, sportspectrum.com, and also you can hit us up on our social media pages, Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. Thanks for listening. We'll see you next time right here on Sports Spectrum. Stay safe. We hope you have a great rest of your day, and we'll see you soon.